let's look into the future. Now, I see a couple of trends emerging here. One is that there seems to be a growing recognition that for general aviation to ever even remotely approach the safety record that commercial aviation has, we have to do something about flight instruction, currency, and proficiency.
Indeed.
Now, this is where it gets a little sticky, because any time there's a proposal to increase the training requirements for private pilots, say, there's going to be the FAA is going to want evidence. It's going to be demanded to present evidence that it will make a difference. And there are going to be general aviation advocacy groups who are programmed to jump in and kind of fight anything that raises the cost burden on their members without proof. Where do we get out of that standoff?
Good question. As you describe it, there is a challenge there that I think everyone in the industry needs to kind of look at and figure out what do we need to do differently to go ahead and improve the safety record. And there has been progress over the years, but as you mentioned, it's no way comparable to what's gone on in the airlines. And frankly, it never will be. You know, the airline's a totally different game. You've got obviously two pilot operations. You have operations manuals that dictate when people fly. You know, as pilots, we probably could choose to create our own operation manuals, if you will. I looked at a couple accidents that occurred recently where people took off in virtually zero visibility. One of those was a King Air, one was a Mooney. Both of those people crashed within 1 mile of the airport. Silly kind of thing to do. If those people just flew with Part 135 type operations manuals that they created for themselves, or even if they just simply had their own personal minimums where they said, you know, it is legal to take off in 00, but I choose to fly to a higher standard. I'm not going to take off unless I have at least X miles of visibility. Those accidents wouldn't have happened. So I think a lot of this comes back onto aeronautical decision making, and a lot of that comes back to CFIs helping pilots understand that even though they have a license, even though they have a wide range of options that they can pursue legally, they have to also be safe. So just because something is legal doesn't mean that it's also safe. So I don't know that we necessarily have to do a lot of changing to the requirements to become a pilot, but for sure I think that CFIs have a huge role to play in encouraging pilots to set higher standards for themselves when they fly every day.
Today, there is an affordable, high-performance, easy-to-own and easy-to-operate very light jet designed with you in mind. Far less expensive than any other twin-engine jet to buy, it is also the least expensive to own and operate. It is the Eclipse 500, the jet that's easy to buy, easy to fly, and fun to own. The jet for you.
A lot of smaller airports now are moving to a requirement that anyone with a plane based there has liability insurance. This in turn puts the ball in the insurance company's court in terms of deciding what requirements they will put on pilots before they'll insure them, or at least give them preferred rates. Do you see the insurance industry maybe playing a bigger role in the future than maybe even the FAA minimums in determining what is our minimum level of acceptable proficiency?
Well, they already provide some role in that regard today. Certainly anybody who's checking out an airplane and their local club has usually some minimum number of hours, particularly for the higher performance aircraft. And those minimums are often driven by the insurance requirements of that particular FBO and their insurance carrier. So I think that's happening already today. And sure, it wouldn't surprise me if that continues to be a factor going forward in the future. Obviously, the insurance companies know how to make the bottom line work better, and making sure pilots know how to fly the airplanes they're flying is one way to do that.
Are there any initiatives within the manufacturer community that you're especially enamored of? I know Cirrus comes to mind as really trying to pioneer some things that will make us more proficient and safe.
Indeed, Cirrus has a great program which they've started recently, and I'm a Cirrus CSIP instructor, spend a lot of time teaching in Cirrus along with all the glass cockpit aircraft. In fact, that's all I really do these days. If it's got glass in the front, then I'm teaching in it. So they've got some online training programs to keep their instructors current, as well as things available for owners as well. So I think what we're seeing in an industry is a big move toward online training. And actually, I think aviation is a little bit slow to embrace that. Historically, those kinds of things have been done for 10 years or more in the high-tech industry where I come from, and everybody's just used to taking online courses to figure out how to get their job done. And so I think the more aviation embraces that, we're going to see more and more online courses, and that's got to help.
Well, and as we get more and more glass panels, even in smaller aircraft, we get into a situation where now the online can look very much like the real thing. And frankly, if you're going to make the maximum safety benefit out of the newer avionics, you're going to have that training.
Indeed. I think that's one of the big challenges is that in the prior days, one could jump into virtually any airplane and figure out how to operate that VOR. We don't have that luxury anymore. So the challenge is going to be for those pilots who are flying maybe 20, 30 hours a year, and there are a lot of those folks who fly even less than that. How do they stay current in some of the new technologies that have require them to step their game up a little bit? And I think, as you mentioned, those online kinds of things and CD-ROM courses, things like that, will provide a way for people between flights to kind of go back to the computer and kind of refresh themselves a little bit so that they're that much more prepared for the next flight. And there's no question, the more time they invest in doing those kinds of things up front, it's going to save them time and money versus when that very expensive fan starts to turn on the front of the airplane. That's not the ideal time to be learning for the first time how to operate those things.
Cirrus aircraft have always been easy to fly. Now they're easier than ever to buy. A complete line of ownership programs gives you everything you need to purchase, trade, finance, lease, insure, and warranty your Cirrus. There's even an ownership program for non-pilots. The Cirrus Access Pilot can teach you how to fly or fly the plane for you. Find out more at www.cirrusdesign.com. Cirrus, with a love of flying.
All right, now that brings us to telling our viewers how they can get in touch with you or find out more about your flight instruction and also about your publishing business, which specializes in instruction for the G1000.
Sure. Probably the easiest way to find out about our publishing tools is go to the very short URL, which is g1000book.com, though we do a lot of other things just besides the G1000 book. And I also suggest they go up to my blog at maxtrescott.com, where they'll learn about a lot of the GA advocacy things that I'm working on, such as urging the FAA to improve the safety goals for the coming year, as well as, for example, working with the local airport groups to prevent the closure of airports. And we have another one yet again in my backyard in San Jose, California. The Reed-Hillview Airport is once again under fire this summer. So it's, as I said, wear a lot of hats here, and I hope all your viewers get broadly involved in aviation and start working with their local airport support groups as well, because I think we all have to contribute to make sure we preserve what we've got for the next generation.
Well, Max, we appreciate you taking a couple minutes out today. Congratulations on the award, and we look forward to more of your writings on Aero-News and elsewhere.
Thanks very much, Paul. It's been a pleasure.